is news from American Contemporary Radio, and I'm Joe Templeton in Washington. The security arrangements at the Democratic National Convention last week touched off the first debate as Congress went back into session today, with Chicago Mayor Daley and the three television networks coming in for both praise and criticism in a heated debate on the Senate floor. The trouble in Chicago also led to an important decision. We asked correspondent Sam Donaldson about it on Capitol Hill.
The President's Commission on Violence has announced today it intends to look into the Chicago violence that attended the Democratic National Convention last week. In doing this, Commission Chairman Dr. Milton Eisenhower said that he would have to have new people on the staff to set up a special task force. He said he'd not contacted President Johnson or Mayor Daley and wanted to make it clear that this was a unanimous decision of the Commission without outside influence.
The correspondent Donaldson says the Commission will not report on its study on the Chicago trouble until after the November election. More news from American Contemporary Radio in just 60 seconds.
That means, oh, fab, they put real borax in you. Oh, fab, they put real borax in you. It's a new kind of clean you'll want to get close to. Oh, fab, I'm glad they put real borax in you.
I'm glad, too, they put real borax in Fab. It gives me a clean I flip for, a clean I can see and feel and smell. Who wouldn't want to get close to that kind of clean?
Oh, Fab, I'm glad they put real borax in you.
While the events in Chicago last week triggered debate in the Senate, lawmakers in both the House and Senate are attacking the convention system itself. Senators Mike Mansfield, Gaylord Nelson, and George McGovern, all Democrats, said the American people no longer feel political conventions represent their feelings. House Minority Leader Gerald Ford also called for changes in the current method of choosing a president, saying a GOP House would propose a constitutional amendment to do away with the Electoral College. Congress went back into session just about 2 hours ago, and for many legislators, the days ahead will be busy. We asked House Speaker John McCormick just how much of a workload the lawmakers have to face. McCormick told us
the House of Representatives could have caught up with this work before we adjourned for the conventions, but the Senate was unable to do so. So we have a Defense Department appropriation bill, we get the foreign aid appropriation bill, we get several other bills. We could clean them up very quickly.
Both McCormick and Mike Mansfield, the Senate leader, agree that it'll be at least 4 weeks before Congress can even think about adjourning. Only 5 of the 16 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee showed up at a meeting today. Chairman James Eastland could not get a quorum, and the committee was not able to take up any action on the nomination of Abe Fortas as Chief Justice. Eastland said after today's session that he didn't know how soon he would try to have another meeting. A Bulgarian airliner with 89 persons aboard crashed Tuesday night near Burgas in East Bulgaria. The official Bulgarian news agency says today that 50 persons were killed. The Bulgarian plane was on a flight from Dresden in East Germany to Burgas when it went down. The Federal Aviation Agency is moving to ease congestion of air traffic in some of the nation's major cities. The FAA today called for a sharp cutback in the number of flights operating in and out of New York, Washington, and Chicago. The FAA proposal will go before a public hearing near the end of this month. The U.S. presidential nominees came under attack by the peace talks in Paris today. North Vietnamese Ambassador Xuan Thuy charged that both Nixon and Humphrey planned to push the war in Vietnam. The U.S. answered by saying that both Republicans and Democrats want peace. U.S. Ambassador Averell Harriman warned Hanoi today against attacking the cities of South Vietnam. Harriman said that such action can only break down the peace talks. Richard Nixon opened his presidential campaign in Chicago today. Security was heavy as Nixon landed at Midway Airport. Nixon rode a motorcade to his hotel in downtown Chicago to attend a rally. Nixon is now on a swing through 5 states. That's the report from Chicago making contemporary news. The top stories right now are these. The President's Commission on Violence is going to look into that trouble in Chicago last week. The Federal Aviation Agency today proposed a cutback in the number of flights in and out of some of the nation's major cities to help ease congestion at airports. 50 persons reported killed in the crash of a Bulgarian airliner near Burgas in eastern Bulgaria. At today's peace talks in Paris, North Vietnam blasted both the Democratic and Republican presidential nominees as men who want to push the war in Vietnam. And a session of the Senate Judiciary Committee had to be dismissed today because not enough members were present to get a quorum. That's the latest news. I'm Joe Templeton in Washington for American Contemporary Radio. A service of ABC News.